I've spent quite some time telling people of the risks trading with the underground empire. Now you can take a bullet from a rival, or more likely, a partner turned traitor, or thrown into a prison of psychopaths with sharpened toothbrushes. But the truth is, regular life is a minefield of danger anyway. So you don't have to break bad to face injury or death. Just by leaving your house, you're throwing yourself amongst fast-moving machines that could tear you apart, crushing objects and slow poisons that will shorten your life. But it's really worse than that. There's a good chance you'll be killed or maimed in your home before you step foot on the sidewalk. More people have choked on their own toothbrushes than have taken one in the ribs for being a wise guy on the landings. Yes. Hello, David McMillan here. Now, just a minute, is that you? Come on, lift yourself off the bathroom floor. That's it. Grab onto the towel rail. Well done. I told you not to put shiny tiles on the bathroom floor. And close the shower screen properly, for Christ's sake. Pull yourself together and put on some clothes. Never mind the doorbell. If it's Amazon, they'll leave it behind the wheelie bin, or the neighbour's bin. But if you go there, be careful on their front porch. The second step is loose. Right. Risk. First of all, you'll have to accept that it takes time to get going in the morning. Don't rush it. Yes, you foolishly agreed to a 9:45 a.m. meeting. You should have made it a lunch meeting. People usually say yes to a deal after lunch. 10 a.m. is refusal zone timing. But you have to get out of the house first. Don't worry about losing time in the morning with healthy foods that require the slicing of fruit, fingers and knives. Stick to frosted wheats and toast. If you arrive dressed to impress, yet have a wad of Kleenex scotch taped to your left hand, it won't matter what you've eaten, how you've dressed. And don't guzzle down that cranberry, ginger and peppermint smoothie you'd made after hurting yourself. It thins the blood, so you won't want to be bleeding from the lost fingertip over the paperwork of the early, what did you call it? A power meeting. Anyway, most of the smoothie ended up on the ceiling of the kitchen, didn't it? How many times will you fail to secure the blender lid? Two things anyway about that meeting. If there's paperwork, it will go badly. A meeting should be at the top. Paper checking is lower management. Besides, in most meetings at that ungodly hour with someone holding power over you, the end will follow his simple demonstration that he pulls the strings. But you almost didn't make it anyway, did you? You didn't take the car because of the heavy traffic. The train, according to the timetable, would get you there sooner. You could have taken your weekend motorcycle, but wisely didn't. The chances of being crushed by a turning truck, blind to your existence on the road, is relatively high. Besides, you don't want to arrive in town with a mouthful of flies and a mud-splattered suit. Yes, the weather forecast doesn't account for sudden bursts, or it's just wrong outright. And that idea you had about wearing a scarf over your face to keep the insects away came to a bad end last time you justed a Vespa for the last bike park space available. You remember now that what holds a scarf on your face? Indeed, it's your neck. Now, I'm not saying that you're necessarily accident-prone or that you live in a dangerous city. People are attacked almost as much in the country as in town. But the total level of risk is still relatively high, unless you get a new life. Back in the days before civilization, and I'm recording a 10-minute history of civilization after this, we could expect to live an average of 40 years. Killed suddenly by our travelling companions in those days, as well as rock slides, drowning, and minimal healthcare arrangements. Your family usually dragged you under a tree so you could die. That was the extent of the healthcare. Though in Britain just now it can take up to 16 hours for an ambulance to arrive when you'll be rushed to the hospital car park to wait there. But what makes the difference from 10,000 years ago is mostly the timing. Today we are slowly killed. Take your pick: diesel particles in the air, fatty foods, mystery carcinogens, careless drug mixing from unregulated sources. I tried to solve that one way back with trade-stamped capsules, holographic film along the package. The result? Accused of planning to traffic narcotics at industrial levels. So often misunderstood. A word, though, about taking trains. The ads picture a relaxed passenger dreamily staring out of a window. More likely it's a comatose traveller slumped against the glass, if he made it that far. What isn't mentioned are the steps. There are many on all London stations, and all dangerous, designed by German architect Albert Speer before the war with victory in mind. The step itself is usually pitted, the riser a snare and trap for the careless sandal, toenails torn, while even a Doc Marten comes to a slippery end on just a dozen drops. Hampstead Station has 320 steps. Take all of those for just 150 days and you would have risen to the equivalent of Mount Everest. But the upward trek, that will kill you from exhaustion, and the downward attempt is crippling suicide. If you do make it to your destination, you won't want to start climbing again. You might think the lift would be a good alternative to stairs. Go ahead, but keep in mind the extraordinarily high number of psychotic episodes recorded from passengers using elevators. There are psychos enough on the roads. Remember the toll booth incident you were in? But the idea that you would willingly trap yourself in a metal box held by wires at altitude, where nutcases go to implode, well, you can't say you weren't warned. But really those dangers hardly matter. There's worse and almost unavoidable. At some point, you have to eat. Do you know that the third most frequent plosive exhalation from the mouth after talking and coughing is choking? And how do we choke, apart from by the occasional Transnistrian cab driver who can't recognise a 50 when he sees one? No, we eat, even more dangerous than breathing. What do these people have in common? Tommy Dorsey, baseballer Jimmy Fox, writer Tennessee Williams, Subrata Mukherjee, Christy Brown, you're getting there, and Jimi Hendrix. He, across town here at a hotel, kind of drooled out, really. But they all choked to death. Another musician, that Tommy Dorsey, he was a horn player, so he should know how to blow good. Pity, a large meal was involved in his case. But the Led Zepp chokey was a drummer, and so it spares no one. Let's not forget Attila the Hun. There's no chicken bone implicated, but never mind what happens when we actually ingest. Getting through just swallowing is plenty tough. And after all, what species would breathe a near poisonous and explosive gas simply to live? I mean oxygen. With every breath you take, the cells of every organ degenerate. But it could be worse. There's the certainty of attack from without, not just within. I knew of a man who lived in New York City, Mr. Newquist, back in the 70s. He would say he lived his life in planned segments. I get up in the morning and I think, okay, the sniper didn't get me for breakfast. Let's see if I can take my morning walk without being mugged. Okay, I finished my walk. Let's see if I can make it back home without getting a brick dropped on my head from the top of a building. "Okay, I'm safe in the lobby," he would say. "Let's see if I can make it up to the elevator without getting a knife in my ribs. Okay, I made it to the hall. Let's see if I can walk in and not find burglars in the hallway. Okay, I made it to the hall. Let's see if I can walk into my living room and not find the rest of my family dead." Sad it was. The newspapers here in Britain are full of what are random killings. A family opened their door to loud noises from the street. Just last week this was. The next day there were little bunches of flowers and notes in cellophane lining that street. But cheer up. All you need is two things, time and distance, and things will look brighter. I'll end on my pick for Story of the Week. It's in the dense jungles near Tanaru, close to the border with Bolivia. And it's about the last member of one of those few native tribes who have had no contact whatsoever with modern people. But he'd been tracked over the past 6 years or so. Unfortunately, all of the others of his tribe had died, but this man alone lived on, and seemingly healthy by all accounts. None of the city pollutants, no processed food, no artificial clothing rubbing plastic fibres into his skin. He appeared about 60 years old from the sightings, and he kept hunting and repairing his little patch with vigour. He had a hut there. Oh, so what happened to him last week? Well, the world's loneliest man died in his sleep. Almost. He choked to death. No, as far as I know, there was no chicken bone involved. Good night.